it's Renee with Delaney Jane Cards. Welcome back to my channel. If you are like me, you have scraps. I think everybody has them. Pattern paper, cardstock. Anyway, today is my collaboration with Amanda over at Rise and Procraftinate. We do this once a month, and this month we decided that we would focus on pattern paper and ways to use that in card making. I normally do these videos and I show you one card with each technique, which is good. It's fine. It shows you how the technique works and, shows you how you can use it in your craft room. And I appreciate videos like that. But this set of techniques that I'm going to show you, I thought it would be kind of fun to make a single card and use them all. I know, right? So one of the techniques is making a background with different pattern paper strips. So here I am just taking some of the blue pattern papers that I have in my scrap bin, and I cut them into strips. I think the widest strip is 3/4 of an inch, and some of them vary. Most of them are 3/4 of an inch. And then I ink blended. So here's another technique, ink blending on pattern paper. The edges with Stormy Sky. I just wanted to add a little bit of detail. So I took a piece of copy paper and I just added some adhesive to it. And now I'm going to lay these stripes on here. I had to, well, I'll show you here. The next one that I put down, that's like the map paper. I wasn't careful enough. See how that corner isn't over the edge? I was able to just peel it back up. But that is one thing about doing a background like this. You have to make sure that all the edges are hanging off. I could have worked with it because you're not going to see this whole background in the end anyway. But this is how I created the striped background. I did have to add liquid adhesive to both corners just to make sure that I had those pieces down. And then once it was done, I flipped it over and I trimmed one edge with my scissors. Didn't trim all the edges with my scissors, just one. And then I brought in my paper trimmer. Now that I have a straight flat side, I'm able to trim it off nice and even all the way around. So here is a background with pattern paper stripes and the bonus technique there of ink blending onto some pattern paper. So now I am going to show you how to build a scene with pattern paper. And I want to point out that this is a cloud die. I'm using it upside down, just so you know. You can do that. You have the ability and the right to take your dies and use them how you wish. I didn't have a wave die, and I thought, well, this cloud die will look like waves if I decide it looks like waves. So I am just taking each of these dies here and cutting them out. I did add a piece of vellum, so that is not pattern paper, but it did come out of my scrap bin, so there's that. And now here is a rolling hill, and there was another little hill there that has some trees on it. I'm cutting 3 of these mountains out. They are all the same size. I will stagger them in my little scene here. And I'm using some purple pattern paper. I always feel like mountains should be purple. I don't know, purple mountains majesty. Just something about them. And then here I did the sun, and this is some comic book looking paper, and I wanted some clouds, so I cut that out of those, or cut those out of that. And these are some super old dies from a Muse Studio. I am a firm believer that dies in stamp sets, they don't expire. You'll see here that the stamp set that I use is really old. So here is kind of how the scene would work if I was just building a scene and not doing anything else with it. So you have water, you have land, you have mountains, a sun, and some clouds for the sky. Super cute, right? I mean, adorable. I could just put that on a piece of paper and we'd be good. So this is one of the oldest Gina K stamp sets that I own. It is from 2010. And when she used to do the red rubber stamp sets, you got like the whole sheet and you had to cut them apart yourself. It was, I would say Gina K stamps were some of my first like big girl stamps that I ever owned, that I had ordered from somewhere that I didn't just get at the local discount store. They were like my prized possessions. So here I'm going to show you two different techniques with this little sailboat. The first is paper piecing. If you've been around my channel for any length of time, you know that I try to sneak paper piecing in as often as possible because I think it adds so much character to an image. So I took the boat, the actual boat part, and I stamped that on some text paper. It's really blurred, blended text, so if you squint, it will look solid. I stamped the sail on this kind of thin chevron, and then I stamped the star on a little hexagon piece of pattern paper. This is an additional thing that you can do with pattern paper. You can color on it. One of the techniques I love most is coloring and having things shine through from underneath. Like I said, that boat has a little bit of texture, so it does, or like text on it, so it does shine through and add some texture. So I wanted to shade the sail for the sailboat, and normally I do all of that before I fussy cut it out. It just makes things easier. So this is the piece that I'm actually going to paper piece on, and you'll see I run my marker around there just in case my lines aren't perfect. Then you would see the color behind it and not white. So after I did that, then I added adhesive, and I'm going to piece these on. The reason I fixed up where I had kind of gone outside the lines is I need to fussy cut this, and I want to leave a little white border, just because that pole that's between the sail and the actual boat is just a line, and I didn't want to have to worry about cutting that up. I'm not sure why my camera is fuzzy here. It only lasts a minute or a few seconds, so please bear with me while I just trim this out. I left the trimming in because I wanted you to see how easy it can be to trim out an image. I don't have any of those fancy scissors that you see on the market. These are some scissors I bought at a scrapbook expo years and years ago. They have a hard handle. They have a tiny, or like a short, snubby blade. I love them. I also have a pair of embroidery scissors that I use to fussy cut. So that was paper piecing and coloring on pattern paper. And here I'm just going to take care of my sentiment. I decided to use this nice bold happy sentiment. It's a pretty big word die, and a lot of times when you see people do the scrappy strip background, you'll see them do a nice big word. So here I am cutting that out. I cut it out once out of some Tim Holtz shiny cardstock that has the craft on the back, and then I cut it out twice out of orange cardstock. Then I'm using this set from Sweet Pea. Yeah, maybe. What is the name of this stamp set? I need to find it now. Yeah, Sugar Pea Designs. And I did snip the stamp apart. It said Happy Father's Day. I just wanted the Father's Day. And here I'm just showing you that those Simon Says stamp sentiment labels, you can cut it out and then slide it over and get that crisp edge and get that sentiment label any length that you'd like. But I did heat emboss that. I used black VersaFine Onyx black ink, and then I heat embossed it in clear so that I had a little label. And here I just stacked up my word happy. A lot of times you'll see people use black or white to stack it up, but I used that little bit of orange on the sailboat, so I wanted to have orange somewhere else that was kind of subtle. So here I'm showing that my background and my pattern paper pieces are not the same, so I did trim that off screen, and here I'm just going to kind of start layering things up so I can see where I'm going to start gluing things down. You'll see that this is going to add lots of layers and dimension. Now, I love to color with my Copics. I love to. I love that I can play with the different shades of different colors and I can get depth. The same can happen here with pattern paper. The two green colors that I used the darker one in the back, and it's not really darker, it just has a more compressed pattern to it, so if you squint at it, it looks darker. This other one has a more bold, wider print on it, the dashed lines, and if you squint at that, it still looks solid, but it's much lighter. So for the clouds, I just tucked them behind the mountains. See how I have my scene is coming together. The striped background is going to be my sky. So I'm using that piece of wave that I cut out, using that flipped over cloud die, and that I also die cut that out of the vellum. So I'm going to lay the piece of pattern paper down and then the piece of vellum, and I did just adhere that way down on the bottom. I want to be able to tuck my boat in yet, and I'm not sure exactly where that's going to be. So finishing up the water here, I just added adhesive down near the bottom and then moved on to the sky. And I have the sunshine, and I'm going to decide where I'm going to put that. I believe that's an MFT die. I can list all these if you really want to. I kind of feel like it's a lot of dies, and if you have seen building dies, you're getting the point that this is more about the pattern paper and less about the dies. So here I'm going to layer my clouds into my scene, and I'm adding 3 of these clouds here. I trimmed off the stuff that was hanging over the edge of my panel, which was part of the clouds and part of the sun. And here I'm deciding where I'm going to put in my little boat. And I did tuck it in behind that vellum layer, so it does look like it's kind of floating in the water. And here I have my sentiment. I'm deciding where I want to lay that down. Now, this sentiment, the reason I cut it out of the Tim Holtz cardstock is because it adds shine. This is going to be a Father's Day card, so I didn't want to add any glitter or shimmer. So I just wanted to add a little bit of shine. I thought this was kind of a fun way to put a Father's Day card together. It has so much, and you know, when those men, they get old, they always look all silly when they dress. They put all those patterns together. So I thought this was a really good nod to that here. I did pop up the Father's Day little label there with some foam tape right at the bottom of my word happy. And then I thought I was pretty much done. We have discussed 5 techniques, but they're not the 5 techniques that I had originally set out to show. They are 4 plus the ink blending. So then I was like, well, let's pull in the 5th technique instead of showing you a second card. And it needed a little something in the sky, so I decided on some clouds. I pulled out this set from Hello Bluebird here and stamped the little cloud onto these 2 pattern papers. I will only use 2 of these clouds, but I wasn't sure what I really wanted. Pattern paper play is kind of fun, but it can be, you know, if you put the wrong thing down, it can look really weird. So I wanted to have options for myself. So I did pop up these little clouds on some more foam tape. Since I popped up the Father's Day sentiment, I thought that, you know, it would balance out just fine. Would add a little bit more. I do end up really liking that little checked pattern and not so much the more creamy pattern. So I did pop those up. I cut that cloud off just a little bit so that I could butt that right up to the edge, and I was trying to decide where I really wanted it. So I put that one there above the mountains and added this cloud to the little cluster with the sun. And that finishes off the front of my card. I love it. I love it. I love it. I have built a few scenes on my channel using pattern paper, and I always am super excited when I finally do that because it just shows how versatile pattern paper really is. Instead of hoarding it, we can use it for fun things like this. So here I'm just stamping the inside. I know I'm a little off screen, but I used gray for the sailboat, stormy sky for the little water edge that comes in the stamp set, and then I added that little cloud on the inside. And then this is Masculine Messages. It's also from Gina K Designs. It is also from 2010. It is also one of those ones that I had to cut apart. But these sentiments are classic. They are beautiful and classic, and I cannot imagine getting rid of any of the sets that I have. Actually, I cannot imagine destashing anything that I own because everything that I own I love. For one reason or another, I find myself going back and using older sets with new sets, styles. They come back around just like trends in clothing. They do the same in stamps and papers. So here I'm adhering the card panel to my card base that I created, and I'm showing you. I would love to know what you thought of my card. Do you enjoy working with pattern paper? Do you enjoy this kind of card where I show you basically six techniques with pattern paper all in one card, or do you feel like it's overwhelming? And make sure you check out Amanda's channel. I will have her video linked below. I love this collaboration with her. I know a lot of you guys do too. We have very different styles, so it is really fun to see what each of us does come up with. So here are some closer shots so you can see the card a little bit better. And I absolutely appreciate you taking the time to watch my video today. I appreciate you subscribing and liking and commenting, and I always try to reply back to my comments. It may take a few days, but I always try. So thank you for stopping by, and as I always say, give cards generously. Bye!